We are the generation of information. We have Google available at our fingertips, yet we are the sickest generation to ever exist. This is a natural consequence of creating a healthcare system that is for profit. I believe that's the combination of success. If anyone holds on to it for long enough, then it's impossible for it not to manifest.
Welcome to the Wiser Than Before podcast, where each episode we'll get a little wiser. I'm your host, Josh Dodds. On this episode of Wiser Than Before, we're talking about a whole range of things, from navigating the healthcare system, understanding its shortcomings, and opinions about where we think change should come from. Our guest, Tianna Trinidad, is a registered nurse and PCOS hormone coach. Tianna talks about the limitations of the healthcare system that she saw as a nurse and as a patient, her realizations about a profit-driven healthcare system, and how she responded by starting her business. She delves into the impact of societal and governmental influences on our health choices and the importance of unlearning old beliefs to adopt healthier habits. She also shares some of her coaching recommendations, like listening to your intuition, having a clear vision for your health goals, raising your awareness, and not confusing more knowledge with the action that is needed to move you forward. Enjoy. Tianna, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, looking forward to it. You have a unique background in that you spent a lot of time in the traditional healthcare as a nurse, and also now as a coach and going through your own experience and with clients, you've really seen the alternative health side too. And so I'm really looking forward to talking to someone who can speak from both perspectives. So to start out, can you tell us, in your opinion, what's the difference between proactive versus reactive approach to health?
Thank you so much for that question. I think it's an amazing question. I think I'm uniquely qualified to answer that question because I was a bedside nurse. And then I just experienced PTSD, and there were just a lot of things I weren't happy with. So I eventually went into get my master's in law. I did my master's in medical health law with a concentration in legal regulatory compliance, thinking that I could shake up the healthcare system, right? I went to work for healthcare companies, like insurance companies, ensuring their compliance. And that's where I really learned the difference between reactive and proactive healthcare. This whole time, I thought that our healthcare system was really reactive in a way, right? It's like you can't get the help that you need unless you are showing and displaying symptoms that you are already sick. And my job when I went into healthcare, into the insurance, is that I thought that I was in such a better position where I could assist people who were showing signs of deteriorating health. I could help them be proactive. I could help them find benefits and resources within their health insurance that would help them. And what I discovered was that that was not what my job was entailing. Very shortly after being hired, I was called in my director, and she let me know, I know that what you think you're doing by assisting these clients is amazing, but it's really not. Let me explain to you how health insurances work. We get a small stipend of money for every client. At the time, it was like $1,100 a month. We don't want to encourage them to use additional benefits. We don't want to encourage them to use additional resources because we are trying to treat each client for smaller than the stipend that we get every single month. So there's a profit left at the end of the year. So I quickly learned that our healthcare system is reactive instead of being proactive, because this is a natural consequence of creating a healthcare system that is for profit. This is a natural consequence of creating a privatized healthcare system that flourishes on profit. And because of that, most likely you will find yourself sick and in need of services before you get the help that you need, because our health system right now is reactive instead of being proactive.
And this is what got me really interested and then passionate about alternative health, because I had some of my own health issues. And over time, after years and years, I'm stepping back. I'm like, there has to be a better way. Like we're not actually moving forward to, my health's getting worse, honestly. And so that got me, first I learned about nutrition, and that just made me feel amazing. And it just really hasn't stopped to this day. The more I learn and experience, I learn there's there's really great ways out there. And it's also why I'm passionate about talking about these things on the show and this podcast and getting the word out, because the truth is we have a lot of power, but we have to understand what each tool is. And like even in conventional healthcare, like that is an amazing tool. Like there's certain things like acute care, putting people back together, or like organ transplants. I mean, it's just incredible. It's almost like we're living science fiction, some of the things that can be done. So that's amazing. But it's one tool. It's like we're using a hammer for every job, and a hammer for the right job can, build a home. For the wrong job, it can break a lot of stuff and cause a lot of damage. So for people to understand that it's not just, you could do whatever you want, right? But to automatically assume, okay, I pay for this health insurance, this is going to take care of everything. It's actually a smaller segment, right? In my opinion, there's a smaller amount of things that fall under that tool where that tool does a really good job. And the more people understand there's other tools that are totally in their power that can really improve their health. I love what you said earlier, like you can do things before you're really sick, before you have all the symptoms, maybe before you meet a diagnosis criteria. Did you have that experience at all for yourself, and how do you view it now?
Oh, I have had one of the worst experiences, if I can be honest with you, that broke me into a million pieces. And I think that it was through that breakdown that I had a breakthrough, and that gave birth to my business. When I was 18, my mom gave birth to a 22-weeker who was given zero chance to live. And just being a young girl, and my mom always wanted a kid, I just wanted to fight for this baby, and I did. And this baby just kept living, and she stayed 1 year and 10 days in the hospital before coming home for the first time with a ventilator, a trach, a G-tube, and more medical needs than any human being could take on. So the local hospital gave me a $40,000 scholarship so I could become a registered nurse to take care of her, because I just had this desire, this will in me to fight for her. And she's 16 now, right? So we're doing the thing, but along that way, I think I kind of created this identity of being like a savior, of being there for everyone. And I got married and I got my master's degree, and it was time for me to have my baby. I had, raised my sister. I did everything right. And I knew my mom had PCOS. I knew we had a history of irregular periods. I knew very little. I just thought that when it was my turn to have a baby, that this was just going to be magical, because I had helped so many families have the babies of their dreams as a NICU nurse, as a labor and delivery nurse. I've saved my sister. I have done so much. And when I got pregnant, just things didn't feel right from the very beginning. And I was gaslit a lot. I was told, everything is in your mind because you work in NICU. You think that you're experiencing things in your stomach, and you're not. I remember there was one time where I got put on disability, and I was complaining about cramps, and the office manager made me sit in office until she verified my insurance before she allowed me to see the doctor. Right. So, just fast forwarding December 26, I had been gaslit, and I just felt like something wasn't right. So I didn't want to go to my local hospital. Instead, I drove an hour away to go to a far hospital, hoping that they would just listen to me a little bit more and make me feel heard in my worries. And when I got there on December 26th, I was told that my 6-month pregnancy no longer had a heartbeat, that I had lost my baby. And there's this whole thing about aborting or when a woman miscarries. It's this whole conflict, red tape around delivering her, around can she deliver. So there was just a lot of stuff. I didn't have surgery until December 31st because of drama in the hospital, and I just remember being broken in a way that I could not put into words, but in a way that I know that women who are listening, who have experienced loss, could speak to. It's a feeling where it's like this void, where this gap, where everything in you tells you that you're a mom. You have all of this evidence within you that you're a mom, but you don't have the physical evidence. No one is going to wish you happy Mother's Day. And it is just it's such an experience. And I just remember thereafter just being like, okay, now it's time to take my health seriously. I haven't had a menstrual cycle since puberty. It's always been missing. I've always been told this is normal. And when I found that there were signs that told me I was going to lose this pregnancy, there were signs that told me that I was suffering with severe hormone imbalances. I was pre-diabetic my whole life. There were signs that I would be gestational diabetic. There were so many signs that were just brushed under the rug. So many things that were told to me that because they were common, that they were normal. And I felt like this caused me to spiral. It caused me to not listen to the little voice within myself, to lose touch with my intuition. And it really just caused a major breakdown before I had a breakthrough. And it was in that moment of darkness that I realized that most people want to live. Most people want to survive. Most people want to eat right. Most people want to do right by themselves. But I learned in that moment of darkness that most people don't have the tools. They don't have the support, the accountability, right? We are the generation of information. We have Google available at our fingertips, yet we are the sickest generation to ever exist. That is because we are over-inundated with physical things. We are overstimulated, right? We do not have body literacy. We do not have body advocacy, right? Starting back in the 1920s, where there was a push for us to leave where there was a push for us to leave our home medicine, right? Our home tinctures, and to now go for this push to modern medicine, where it was like, we're no longer going to use homemade remedies because now we want to push the advancement of modern medicine. So now we're going to use all these pharmaceutical drugs that come from the natural remedies anyway. Right? All in the name of profit, all in the name of some sort of technological sophistication that we have yet to reach. Right. So I definitely feel like that situation, caused me to be who I am right now. It's caused me to have so much tenacity and space, and to name my business Love Surf Warm. Because as a registered nurse, and as as a legal nurse, I've learned that the healthcare system is truly reactive instead of proactive. And the best fight against a health system that wasn't created to protect you is to truly be your own best advocate and learn how to protect yourself.
Yeah, those are really the two extreme ends that you've experienced. I mean, on the positive side, keeping that child alive for an entire year with that early birth, like that is incredible that modern medicine can do that. And then on the other side, finding out your pregnancy doesn't have a heartbeat anymore and these other things, like and to have this realization that there were signs, or there's, knowing what you know now, it sounds like a different approach could be taken, and the heartbreak and frustration from that. And that's really what I was talking about earlier, is like, we don't have good understanding. We don't have a good communication about where things fall within that spectrum. Because there are things that modern medicine just, like I said, it's almost like science fiction how advanced we are. And I really feel like we're missing so much of what we can do ourselves, the empowerment, the way we can take care. We could take care of a lot of these problems ahead of time, but there's not. It's funny,
but
for all the information.
That's intentional?
It could be. I mean, I will say that, like, businesses are made to make profit, and that's the economy we live in. That's the world we've created. So again, we got to acknowledge the game that's being played. It's not we're no longer in monarchy governments where there's a king making all the rules. Like, the rule is the economy and business, and that business is owned. The public companies are owned by shareholders, and everything is pretty much judged on profit. So let's understand that, pharmaceutical companies' job is to earn profit. And if they make a great product that helps people's health, great, but that's not even the number one thing. It's more like, is there a product that a medical use case can be made for, and that data can be shared with health systems and doctors, and if it's accepted, then it rolls out, and that's a profitable product. So let's just understand that, because there are times when again, I've had times in my life where I'm like, wow, thank goodness this drug exists. And I've had many times in my life where I'm like, why was I prescribed this? I didn't need it. Why did I take it? Why didn't I do the research? Why did it take me 5 years to do the research or just understand it better of the side effects that can happen in my body? And so again, that's why I love this conversation. There's place and a time for it, but also it's like if we just think like I used to, like, oh, just walk in this room and everything's going to be taken care of, and this is the best direction for my health. That's how these stories happen. Like 10 years down the road, you're like, wow, I didn't know what I was getting into. I mean, are you helping your clients with that now? Is that part of your focus to start to show them where they can take control and start to change these things that maybe they've been told can't be changed, or they have bad genes or something like that, but in actuality, there's more they can do than they realize?
Absolutely. I take great pride in just creating relatable content that my clients can connect to. It's in telling my story of how I lost my pregnancy, that women who have lost pregnancies, now they are not blaming themselves. Now they're starting to question, well, I didn't have a period either. Could it have been that I had a hormone imbalance that, could it, and it gives women a lot of peace, right? These are very taboo topics. Menstrual cycle, miscarriage, fertility, right? No woman wants to say that she's been trying for years and she can't have a baby, right? When everyone keeps asking when it's time. No woman wants to say that, say out loud how it makes us feel as less than a woman. When we're unable to carry, when we don't know when our cycle is coming, when we don't know if we can give the husband, the boyfriend, the partner that we look with googly eyes, if we can't give them the family that they so desperately crave for, there's no space for us to have these conversations. Even when I went back to work, Josh, I know, I'm a registered nurse. I deal with medically complex children and women. That's my specialty. When I got back to work, and I work for the government, they asked me, when did you lose the baby? Was your loss internally or externally? And I was a little bit confused. It was like, what are you asking me? And they were like, did you lose the baby inside or outside? And I was like, inside. And they were like, we apologize for letting you know this, but human resources, our policy doesn't cover bereavement for pregnancy loss. Therefore, we need you to return back that 7 days of pay that you've gotten. Well, don't worry, we'll take it out your check over the next few weeks. And I quit that same day, okay? Because I said, wow, how can I work for a system as a nurse when I can't even get the same kind of TLC back when I need it the most, right? So it's really unfortunate, but like you mentioned before, I have to piggyback. It's the reality of the times that we live in.
Hey there. I hope you're enjoying this episode so far and that you already feel a little wiser. Could you benefit from hearing more conversations like this in the future? If that's a possibility, then make sure and press the follow button right now so you don't miss out. You can always decide which episodes to listen to and which ones to skip. But if you're not following, how will you ever know when the topics that are most important to you get covered? Best of all, you can choose from a variety of short episodes and longer interviews, so you'll always have something that works with your schedule. It's a wise move. Speaking of wise, let's get back to the episode. So what did you do from there? Is that when you launched your business?
That's when I launched my business. At first, I was doing some work here and there. And then, I feel like sometimes a wound is the area that God shines light through, because it was just, I tried to go back to work and COVID came. I found myself pregnant with my daughter. I found myself extremely sick. This was the November before COVID went big, that January. I had to be on steroids, lost all of my hair, just really tough time. And I remember getting a letter saying that I could not, my job was, I was seeing regulation for medically fragile, medical foster children. So I had to go and make sure that the parents that were being paid, that they were treating the child right. But these children were very sick, on ventilators, just very sick, high acuity. And I could no longer visit them because I was pregnant and because my lungs were in such poor condition. And my job released me from duties because they said, if you cannot do your functions as a nurse, we don't have any job for you here. And I was let go like the first week of December, right before the world shut down for COVID, not even knowing it was COVID, just thinking it was some crazy lung infection that I caught. And that's when I realized that I felt like I kept fighting to create a change in a system that wasn't really ready for the change. So I decided I wanted to create my own corner of the internet where I could use my expertise, use my clinical knowledge, and just serenade women who needed it the most. And I decided I was going to name my business Love Served Warm, because I truly felt like that was the piece that's missing from healthcare, right? It's like the love. It's like when we go to that office and we see somebody in a white jacket and we feel so sick, we are just looking for that warmth. We're just looking for someone to hear what's wrong and to make us feel better, to reconfirm what we, to make us feel good. And it is missing from healthcare. And that's exactly what I want it to be. That's my prayer, that when people see me, that they see God, that they know God through me, that they feel that love through me. And I just work every day to make women feel that, to make them feel relatability, to make them feel heard and seen, and to just provide free education and free resources whenever I can. And that really was the push. It wasn't one incident. It was just a multitude of incidents that just let me know that healthcare is not what I thought it was. And unfortunately, we're just trending more negatively as time goes on. And I want to be, I don't want to be, I don't consider myself an opponent to the healthcare system. If anything, I consider myself their partner, right? I want to be a part of the team. I want to support my clients through their healthcare with their healthcare teams. I want to be a part of it. I just want to teach them to advocate for themselves and body literacy.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree that it can be, again, like the right tool at the right time, and healthcare definitely plays a role, but there's a huge piece missing that gets talked about so little. So it's great to have people like you that can see that blind spot and start to, fill it in with your content, with the way you help people, so that they can have a full, complete picture of health, and ideally have a lot less of these, warning signs that build up over time, and 10 years down the road, then it's like a big medical issue. It can be caught earlier, and can they know the right way to navigate their options? Is that part of what you'll teach your clients, or you focus more, is it primarily on the PCOS and what they're dealing with in that area?
Honestly, so PCOS is just a condition where the hormones are imbalanced collectively, right? And hormones are just chemical messengers. They just tell your body what to do. I feel like what I teach is applicable to everyone. Everyone is experiencing hormonal imbalances on some level. It's just that women with PCOS experience it so severely, so greatly, right? But women with perimenopause, with menopause, even men are struggling now with increased estrogen, right? Men don't have as much testosterone. Men need hormone coaches as well, right? It's just that in this space where if you're talking to everyone, you're talking to no one. I have specialized in women with PCOS because that's what I have. But I believe that the knowledge is transferable. In my program specifically, I work on a 5-step protocol because as we discussed, it is not just knowledge. It is so much deeper than that. So I work on mindset. That is the first part of my program, and the absolute most important part, right, is identifying what are the habits that are costing you. What are the triggers, right? If you don't understand your trigger, you will be a victim to whatever's triggering you each and every time. So I believe the first part is truly awareness, right? I teach quantum physics. I teach the split experiment, right? Just to understand that whatever we focus our mind on, reality collapses, that becomes your reality. We live in a reality of infinite possibilities. And why that's so important is because in my experience, I have seen that people who have been diagnosed with cancer, people who have been diagnosed with these life-ending ailments. Before that, they've all had a dream. They've all had some major dream in life. I want to write a book. I want to do something major. And usually when they're hit with something like that, it changes their outlook on life. And many of them will go and do whatever it was that they never got to do. And what you'll notice is that we call it scientific miracles. I don't believe that. I believe that sometimes when you don't live according to your purpose, you will have physical signs and symptoms will manifest, such as anxiety and depression and all of those things, letting you know that you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, because we are creative beings. We were never meant to be at a desk for 8-10 hours a day. So I truly believe that when people understand that what they believe collapses their reality and creates their reality, then that changes their mindset, right? I teach people the law of relativity. What's possible for others is possible for you. Look at the 4-minute mile. We thought it was humanly impossible. After the first person did it, the next one did it like 3 weeks later, right? We have to see it's possible for us. We have to constantly be serenaded with examples of women who have done it before. The top 3 causes of death in the United States are all preventative. Let me say that again. The top 3 causes of death, I think worldwide, actually, all preventative. Whatever it is that you want to create, my clients have to create a whole vision board. Because if you don't know what your goals are, if you don't know what the end goal is, if you don't know what the vision is, then you will never be complicit. You will never be happy with the results that I give you, because if you don't know what makes you happy, I can never determine that for you. Right? So a lot of times I don't think that the implementation is easy. We have decades of research. We know what foods, we know what ingredients, we know what is causing the epidemic that we're in. The problem is that the systems that are put in place to steal our attention, to steal our focus, the endless scrolling, right? The hours spent, those are the things that steal the attention. They steal our ability to manifest, to create. Right. And I believe that once people become aware of that and they begin to pull back in their energy with the right tools, awareness, identifying those things, learning to eat better, right? A lot of times we can feel like you're going out somewhere and you feel this feeling in the pit of your stomach that tells you don't go, right? We call that our intuition. Right? And I didn't mean for this to be so spiritual, but that's actually like the universe communicating with us through our solar plexus, right? Your gut is the second brain. So the better you eat, the more connected you are spiritually, just to everything. I believe it all starts in the mind. I believe it starts with awareness. It starts with becoming more connected with a connection that we've lost in this capitalistic society. That's the first step. And then I believe that the rest comes easy and the rest flows from there, right? Because when you identify who you are and who you want to be and exactly what she looks like and what she eats like and how many hours of sleep and how does she carry herself and what's the first thing she does in the morning, then you are able to identify the differences between where you are and where you want to be.
And so if someone's listening, and they think one of two things, say they think, yeah, I'm on board. This is making sense, but how do I do that? I don't know exactly how to find that belief, that mindset, and maybe even that vision you're talking about. How would you respond to them? And if they're thinking instead, I already know who I am. I know what I want. I definitely want to be healthier and maybe XYZ other things in their life, but it's just not working. What would you say to them? And is it the same or different between those two people?
Yeah, I think it's a little different because I think that the G.I. Jane fallacy tells us that knowing better doesn't mean that we necessarily do better. And I feel like that's the problem with a lot of us, is that we know better. And because we think that we're aware, we pacify ourselves, right? We believe that making us aware makes us better than the people who are not aware. But we're both in the same position. We're both in the same position of inactivity. So does it really matter that you're aware and that I'm not? Right? We know don't take your kids to McDonald's because the food is not the healthiest, but we still do it. We still get our kids the Happy Meal, right? Knowing better doesn't necessarily mean that we do better. And that's one of those most important parts of mindset that I think that we really have to nail down. We've become really disconnected. We don't have faith in ourselves. We don't believe that we're going to do something when we say we're going to do it, right? And there's evidence of this, right? People who set out to commit a goal, I believe 2 out of 10 people actualize any goal that they commit to. The stats are so incredibly low. But then if you add in support and accountability, those stats go up to 9 out of 10 people, right? So that's really the difference that coaching makes, right? Sometimes we'll show up for people in a way that we won't show up for ourselves, especially when people make a financial investment behind that commitment. So I definitely think that, sometimes we can trick ourselves by believing that because we're aware, we're better than the person who's not aware. But at the end, we're all stuck in these systems of inactivity. And I believe that it's intentional, right? I believe that it's intentional.
Well, for sure. Like I said earlier, like there's businesses and we have that economy. So marketing is designed to attract people to a certain thing. So it's for sure, if you don't have some grounded roots and know who you are, where you're going and what you want, then there's definitely, tons of marketing and influence that will direct you where these businesses want you to go.
Shouldn't it be our government's job to kind of because if outside of the United States, there's no other country who is allowing pharmaceutical companies to create videos, to create commercials for pharmaceutical. That's illegal in anywhere outside of the US, right? So doesn't the government have some responsibility to kind of facilitate the education that we need to make the right choices? I mean, if women are not learning about menstrual cycles in school and they're not learning about eating proper nutrition in school, then where are the resources for them to know better, to even do better if they wanted to?
So my view, and I'd love to hear if you disagree or have a counter view, but on the one hand, it's like, yes, clearly the better the leadership, the better the system that we have and we build, because we're all part of our society here, then yeah, that can address a lot of things at the top level. At the same time, I'm not going to wait for quote unquote them to do the right thing. And so the question is kind of, what can we do to influence that and have the government create things that, really truly good for our society? And also, how can I succeed as an individual or even an individual community today and not have to wait for it and, not do what I did, wake up 5 years, 10 years down the road and be like, oh, I've just been a little blind. Oh, and you talk about awareness. I was like, I had a lack of awareness. I was kind of just going down this path, assuming this, the best plan will be undertaken. But it's, even in our country, it's such a huge country, such a diverse world. Like everyone's needs are a little different. So also, I'm really big on how do we empower each of us to have knowledge and make the best decisions for ourselves when the system or whoever's providing isn't fully on point.
I think it's important for us to admit to ourselves that the more you learn that you know nothing, right? And I think that the issue is that we have a lot of rigidity in our society, right? We are committed to old truths, right? We'll look at doctors and you'll say to your doctor, I read something on TikTok, and the doctor will scold you for looking for any source outside of him, right? There's really this commitment to the old truth. To that, I say that I believe that one of the major signs of intelligence is not how much you can learn, but it's your ability to learn and unlearn what you thought you knew. And that's where most people struggle, right? It is teaching yourself, actively unlearning all of the domestication, all of the learning that we have been given, and becoming curious about everything, right? We are kind of like in this spell of hypnosis, right? Where our favorite celebrities use foods that they don't themselves eat at home. And there's advertising on the front product that'll say low fat or sugar free. And in the back, there's Dildoxerone, whatever sweetener, right? So I think that the first part is definitely like unlearning everything that we thought we knew. If you see sugar free, you still got to scan those labels for any other name of sugar, right? It's just like, I don't want to say becoming distrustful, but it is truly becoming distrustful. And everything that you once believed was true, right? And just becoming extremely curious. My first son, I spoke a little bit that I had gestational diabetes. My first pregnancy, my son came out like a Tasmanian little devil. Okay. He would not sleep and he would destroy everything in my house. And he would talk so fast that no one could hear one word that he was trying to say. And he was labeled as emotionally aggressive. And I was to put him in one of the most restrictive classrooms that there was. But I knew that just wasn't my kid. But I tried to follow doctor's advice, and he stopped eating regular food. I gave him Pediasure 6 cans a day. And then something in my heart said, I just don't feel like this is right. Right. And I wanted to distrust the advice that my doctor gave me. And I went online and learned that each can of Pediasure was equivalent to a Snicker bar. And I had been feeding my son 6 Snicker bars a day. Okay. And that's why he was so active. So then I just started to just become so curious with nutrition. I became curious with the reading about hyperactivity in children, learning about nutritional deficiencies in his brain, supplementing with those same nutrients. I became curious about detoxing him from heavy metals, doing a bath with Epsom salt, Amazonian clay. Josh, my son went to school this year for the first time in a regular classroom. I did not let them know that he had a IEP, a special. I did not let them know that he was on the spectrum. I said nothing. I took him to a private school, and they compliment me every day on how loving he is, on how, and that was just it. I just distrusted everything that I was told. And I just decided that I was going to remake the gummy bears, but I was going to do it with bone broth, beef gelatin. I was going to learn to make everything that he liked, but without sugar. And and it changed his world. And when I saw his world change, I had already started Love Serve Warm, but that gave me this push, this tenacity, that I realized that most people's bodies want to do what they are designed to do. Right? It would be like us showing up for this podcast and you saying, I would love for you to have an external mic and camera. And I come and I'm like, Joss, I just got a cell phone. What can we do? You'd be like, I really can't help you. Right? It's the same way that we eat processed foods. We have 80% of us is deficient in magnesium, right? A lot of us are insulin resistant, right? And we're expecting our body to do these natural bodily functions without giving our body what it needs. Right. And so then the body can't do these things. So again, it's all unlearning and relearning, right? It's undoing the industrialization. It's going back and supporting our local farmers, right? It's going back and, trying to eat whole foods, paying attention to the labels. Chick-fil-A, I'm sorry to name drop, but Chick-fil-A sandwich has over 40 ingredients. It's just a piece of fried meat, chicken. We have to start questioning what we are allowing into our bodies, what we are putting onto our skin. Autism has exploded in the last 20 years. So has CEO profits. We have to understand how the two are correlated. We have to understand how the push for more money cheapens human life, right? And so I think that we have to unlearn. We have to rebuild community, which has been broken, and we just have to start back looking in. And it is the best book that I could say is The 4 Agreements, right? Because we're all kind of like in this trance. Right? It starts slow. For me personally, I had to become a minimalist. I had to learn that having so many things in my physical space created mental clutter. I had to stop watching TV. I had to understand that I was being domesticated, that I was seeing things and unconsciously acting out in ways that I saw on TV. That I would leave Fast and Furious and think that I could drive like Letty from Fast and Furious. Just for a few minutes, I was convinced. Right? So it's a gradual change, but I feel like the first thing is awareness. Just knowing that a change needs to occur is the first thing, and just read on it and just take time, because I truly feel like when the egg cracks from within, life begins. But when the egg cracks from the outside, life ends. Right. So I would say to give yourself grace, take the journey very slowly. And just the fact that you're here listening to this podcast, questioning how do you take the next steps, you are already halfway there.
The last question is that where's the turning point from this knowing to doing? Like you talked about the implementation, and that's really when we start to get it. That's really when people start to see the change. So they're starting, you just said, start with awareness. Is there an inflection point somewhere in there where you see it start to shift for people and they really start to make those changes and start to feel and see those benefits?
There is an inflection point, but I think the problem is most people give up before they actually get to it. Right? If you're 30 something years old, you have 30 something years of conditioning that you are trying to reverse. And most people don't stick with it long enough. Right? And that's the first piece of advice, that you have to stick with it long enough. Right? There will be a time in between the period in which you hold your vision of success in your mind. There will be a period of time before that can physically manifest. It takes time for that to happen. Right? So we have to be able to have that self-control to hold on to the vision, even if we don't physically see it materializing in our presence, right? That takes long. And I feel like for some people, they can have the overnight success. And for other people, it's not as easy, and we give up. And people have to understand that life is a marathon. It is not a sprint. And everyone has their breakthroughs on their own time, in their own chapter, right? What I will say is that when you become aware and you outline the steps that are in between where you are and where you want to be, I believe that results precede action, right? So begin committing action to whatever it is those steps are in between. And I believe that with enough tenacity and enough time and enough self-belief, that the vision of success becomes a natural consequence of you not only holding the vision in your mind, but of you actually actualizing it by doing that work. Right? By doing the work. A lot of times we want things, but we never take the first step to get it. We never take the first step, right? And I think that the most important thing here is taking the first step before seeing the rest of the staircase. If you look at anyone, and I'm talking about anyone because I'm obsessed with reading about the greats, right? We can talk about Hyundai. We can talk about Hyundai. We can talk about Henry Ford, right? Who wanted to build an 8-cylinder engine. And for over a year, the scientists convinced him that he was out of his mind, that nothing more than a 6-cylinder engine could ever be created. And he held on to that vision of success, and he kept going. And it took over a year. And he even went through lawsuits testing his mental to see if he was competent, right? And it eventually manifested. And I believe that people will say that you are in whatever you're doing, right? This is not limited to health. This is to business. This is to whatever you want to do in life. You are only crazy until it manifests, and then you become a genius, right? So just stay on that path, right? Hold the vision of success in your mind and make strides for it. Run towards it. Welcome in failure, because failure just tells you found another way that doesn't work. And I get excited to fail because I know that there is only a certain amount of times that I can fail before I hit victory, right? So I encourage you to run towards each failure, to run with tenacity, to run towards it with grace, and to understand that each failure is just that much closer. And I think that those who have the ability to hold on to their dreams despite what their senses shows them, they're the ones who prevail in the end. They're the ones who will manifest their vision of success into the physical. It's just holding on to that vision for long enough while acting in the physical to do things, to pursue it, I believe that's the combination of success. And I believe that if anyone holds on to it for long enough, then I believe it's impossible for it not to manifest.
I mean, I totally agree. If people can hear that and just take belief for themselves, so like, hey, you can do this. Just keep going, keep taking steps. You'll get there. It's amazing. If someone wants to work with you or follow more of your content, how can they do that?
Definitely. If someone wants to work with me, they can find me at Love Served Warm, where I provide educational content and free resources every single day, Monday to Friday.
Great. And that's your Instagram handle. Love the name, by the way.
That is everywhere.
That's everywhere. Website, YouTube, etc. Okay, great. We'll link to it in the show notes. So you just go to there, guys, and click the one you want. Tianna, thank you so much for being here today. Appreciate you sharing everything you did with us.
Thank you for having me.
Hey there. I hope you enjoyed this episode and that you feel you're walking away a little wiser. If that's the case, consider sharing the link to this episode with someone you care about or someone it could help. It's free for you, and you just might make someone's day. A little drop of wisdom is something we could all use from time to time. So press on the share button and send it to whoever comes to mind. This young podcast has sprouted out of nothing. No following, no connections. It's simply grown by word of mouth because people like you have shared it with other people. Thank you so much for doing that. We look forward to building this community and bringing you more great content so we can all walk away a little wiser. See you in a couple days for our next episode. Stay wise.